My name is Abigail, and the moment I realized my entire family had orchestrated my humiliation was when I stood at the airport check-in counter, watching the attendant's sympathetic smile fade as she told me there was no booking under my name. My mother's voice echoed in my head from that morning. Just show up, sweetheart. Everything's taken care of. Behind me, a family of four laughed as they tagged their matching luggage for Rome. I stood there with my carry-on and a sick feeling in my stomach, understanding with crystal clarity that I had been erased from my own sister's wedding. Have you ever felt the exact moment someone you love decided you were disposable? Let me back up. 6 months earlier, my sister Claire announced her engagement to Marco, an Italian architect she'd met during a wine tour in Tuscany. The family dinner where she shared the news was electric with excitement. My mother cried. My father ordered champagne. My younger brother Jake made a toast about finally getting a brother-in-law who appreciated soccer. And Claire, radiant in a way I'd never seen her, talked about a destination wedding at Marco's family villa overlooking the Amalfi Coast. I was genuinely happy for her. Claire and I weren't close the way some sisters are, but we weren't enemies either. We'd grown up in different worlds despite sharing the same house. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, while I was the practical one, the steady one, the one who went to state school instead of private college, who worked in nonprofit education instead of finance, who dated kind men instead of wealthy ones. But that night, with Claire glowing and my parents beaming, I felt included in something special. When my mother pulled out her iPad and started talking about booking a villa for the family, about making this a week-long celebration, I felt the warm embrace of belonging. My father even clapped me on the shoulder and said, "All my girls together in Italy. Doesn't get better than that, Abby." The planning started immediately. Group chats exploded with messages about flights, accommodations, itineraries. My mother took charge with military precision, which wasn't unusual. Linda Hartwell could organize a moon landing if you gave her a spreadsheet and a purpose. She created shared documents, price comparisons, booking timelines. Every family member had assignments. Except mine never quite materialized. At first, I thought it was an oversight. When I asked about flight details, my mother said, "Still working on it, honey. These group bookings are complicated." When I offered to book my own ticket, she insisted, "No, no, we're doing this as a family. It'll be more economical. Just sit tight." So I sat tight. I requested the time off from work, a full 10 days that I'd been saving my vacation time for all year. I bought a new dress for the wedding, spent money I didn't really have on Italian phrase books and travel guides. I even started taking online Italian lessons twice a week, wanting to make a good impression on Marco's family. The months passed. Spring turned to early summer. The wedding date approached. And every time I brought up the tickets, I got variations of the same response. "It's handled." "Trust me, Abby. Why are you always so anxious about everything?" That last one stung, mostly because it was my mother's favorite criticism of me. Anxious, worried, overthinking. As if my caution was a character flaw rather than a reasonable response to a lifetime of being an afterthought. 2 weeks before the wedding, I finally pushed hard enough that my mother sent me a confirmation number. Relief flooded through me. I checked it immediately, pulled up the airline website, entered the code, and found nothing. The confirmation number didn't exist in any system I tried. When I called my mother, she sounded irritated. "Abigail, I'm in the middle of a spa appointment. I'll check it later." "Mom, the wedding is in 2 weeks. I need to know this is real." "It's real? God, why do you always have to create drama?" I bit back my response. I'd learned over 32 years that pushing my mother only made things worse. So I waited. I texted Jake, who left me on read. I called Claire, who said, "Mom's handling all of this, Abby. Just trust the process." Trust the process. As if my entire family hadn't spent 3 decades teaching me that trusting them was a gamble I usually lost. The night before our scheduled departure, I still hadn't received a real ticket. What I had was a screenshot of a booking page that my mother finally texted me. But when I looked closely, I could see it had been edited. The pixels were wrong around my name. The confirmation number still didn't work. I sat on my apartment floor at midnight, staring at my packed suitcase, and felt something cold settle in my chest. They weren't going to take me. This elaborate planning, these months of group chats and excited messages, had all been theater. They were going to Italy without me, and they'd been planning it all along. But I didn't know how to process that reality. It was too cruel, too calculated. So I did what I always did. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I showed up at the airport at 5 in the morning, like my mother had instructed. That's where our story really begins, with me at that counter, watching the attendant's face shift from helpful to concerned as she confirmed what I already knew in my bones. There was no ticket. There had never been a ticket. I called my mother. It went to voicemail. I called my father. Same. Jake didn't even have his phone on. Claire's number went straight to an automated message about international roaming. They were already gone. Already in the air, probably. Flying together to Italy for a family celebration that I'd been systematically edited out of like a photograph you crop before posting. The attendant was still looking at me with that terrible sympathy. Is there anything else I can help you with? I thought about last-minute tickets, about charging thousands to a credit card I couldn't afford, about showing up anyway and forcing them to acknowledge me. Then I thought about the villa my mother had booked, how she'd specified exactly how many rooms they needed, how the numbers had never quite included me if I'd been paying attention. I thought about the rental car reservations, the restaurant bookings, every plan made for one fewer person than they'd led me to believe. No, I told her quietly. Thank you for checking. I walked away from the counter with my small suitcase and a clarity I'd never experienced before. They hadn't forgotten. They had chosen. This wasn't an accident or a miscommunication. This was deliberate. I sat in the airport for an hour, watching families come and go, watching people reunite and separate, watching the normal flow of people who had places they belonged. And then I made a decision. I pulled out my phone and booked a hostel. Not in Italy, in Portland, Oregon, a city I'd always wanted to visit. I found a clean, well-reviewed place in the Pearl District for $8 a night. Then I booked a flight. Last minute and expensive. But something about spending that money on myself felt like oxygen after drowning. Before I boarded, I sent one message to the family group chat. Have a beautiful wedding. I won't be joining you. Don't worry about me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Then I turned off my phone and got on a plane heading west instead of east. Portland in June was everything I needed it to be. Cool mornings, warm afternoons, a city that felt alive and creative and utterly indifferent to my family drama. The hostel was better than I expected. Clean bunks, a communal kitchen, and a diverse mix of travelers from around the world who were there for adventure, not obligation. I spent my first day walking, miles and miles through neighborhoods I'd only seen in photographs. I ate lunch at a food cart pod, sitting on a picnic bench next to a couple from Australia who were biking down the coast. I bought books from Powell's City of Books, getting lost in the aisles until my feet ached. I had coffee at 3 different shops, trying to understand what made Portland's coffee culture special. And I didn't check my phone, not once. On day 2, I joined a group from the hostel for a hike in the Columbia River Gorge. There was a German couple, 2 solo travelers from Japan, and an American woman about my age named Simone who was taking a year off to figure out what she wanted from life. We hiked to Multnomah Falls, and standing there watching the water cascade down, I cried for the first time since the airport. Simone stood next to me without asking questions. When I finally wiped my eyes, she handed me a granola bar and said, "Whatever you left behind, it's smaller from here, right?" I laughed despite myself. Yeah, it really is. That night back at the hostel, I finally turned on my phone. The TE notifications came in waves, hundreds of them, messages, missed calls, voicemails. I watched them populate my screen like evidence of a crime. My mother's messages started apologetic. Abby, there was a mix-up with the booking. Then angry. You're being incredibly selfish right now. Then manipulative. Your sister is devastated that you'd miss her wedding over a simple mistake. My father's were shorter, more commanding. Call me now. This behavior is unacceptable. You owe your sister an apology. Jake had sent memes and half-hearted explanations about group bookings being complicated. Claire's messages were the ones that hurt most. I can't believe you'd do this to me. My wedding day and you're making it about you. Mom said you threw a tantrum at the airport and refused to work with them. I sat on my bunk and read through them all, watching my family rewrite history in real time. In their version, I was the problem. I was the one who had caused drama, who had overreacted, who had chosen to miss the wedding over a simple booking error. Not one of them had said, "We're so sorry, we messed up. How can we fix this?" I typed and deleted a dozen responses. I wanted to defend myself, to explain, to make them see what they'd done. But then Simone climbed up to the bunk next to mine and said, "Family shit? How'd you know?" Only family can make someone look that angry and sad at the same time. I smiled weakly. They left me behind. Literally. And now they're mad that I didn't chase after them. So don't, she said simply. Let them sit in their own mess. It seemed impossible. My whole life, I'd been the one who smoothed things over, who apologized first, who made peace even when I'd been wronged. The idea of just not responding felt revolutionary and terrifying. But I did it. I closed the messages without replying and put my phone on airplane mode. The rest of the week in Portland was transformative in ways I hadn't expected. I wasn't just running from my family. I was running towards something. Myself, maybe. The version of me that existed outside of their narratives and expectations. I took a cooking class and learned to make Thai curry from scratch. I went to Powell's 3 more times and bought more books than I could carry home. I had deep conversations with strangers who became temporary friends. I watched street performers in Pioneer Courthouse Square. I ate alone in restaurants without feeling lonely. I sat in coffee shops and wrote in a journal I'd bought, trying to untangle 32 years of feeling like I was never quite enough. On the last day, I hiked alone to a viewpoint overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and pink, and I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. My family hadn't forgotten me. They had excluded me on purpose, and when I'd refused to chase them, they'd blamed me for their cruelty. It was clarifying and devastating in equal measure. When I flew home, I still hadn't responded to any messages. The family group chat had gone quiet too, which told me they were having too much fun in Italy to waste energy being mad at me. I was already forgotten again. Back in my apartment, I finally sat down and wrote one message. I hope the wedding was beautiful. I'm taking some time to focus on myself. I'll reach out when I'm ready. My mother's response came within minutes. You're being childish. We're your family. You don't get to just ignore us. But I did. I muted the group chat. I didn't block anyone, but I stopped checking. I went back to work and told my colleagues I'd had a wonderful solo trip to Portland. I showed them pictures of waterfalls and bookstores and food carts. I didn't mention Italy or weddings or families who forgot plane tickets. 2 weeks later, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. I'd just gotten home from work, still in my teacher clothes, exhausted from a long day with fifth graders who were already thinking about summer break. She was standing in the hallway when I got off the elevator, arms crossed, face set in that expression I knew so well, the one that said I was about to be lectured about my failures. We need to talk, she said. I unlocked my door and let her in, not because I wanted to, but because I'd never learned how to say no to her. She didn't waste time. Abigail, this silent treatment has gone on long enough. Your father and I are very disappointed in you. Missing your sister's wedding because of a booking mishap? It's immature. I stood in my small kitchen, still holding my work bag, and something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet breaking of whatever had kept me tethered to their version of reality. There was no booking mishap, Mom. Of course there was. These things happen with group travel. No, you never booked me a ticket. The confirmation number you sent me was fake. I checked with 3 different airlines. There was never a reservation under my name. Her face did something complicated. Surprise, anger, calculation. That's absurd. Why would we do that? I don't know. That's what I've been trying to understand. Why would my own family go through months of pretending to include me, only to leave me behind at the last minute? You're being paranoid. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you decided Claire's wedding would be better without me. And instead of telling me honestly, you let me show up at the airport at 5 in the morning like an idiot. My mother's face hardened. Your sister's wedding was perfect, absolutely perfect, and we didn't need your drama ruining it. There it was. The truth, sharp and ugly. What drama, Mom? I've never done anything but try to be part of this family. You're always so sensitive, always making everything about you. Claire deserved a day where she didn't have to worry about your feelings or your issues. My issues? What issues? She waved her hand, dismissively. You know what I mean. You're just different from the rest of us. You've always been different. This wedding was expensive, Abby. Your father and I had to be practical about who we brought. The words hung in the air like poison. Practical. As if love was a resource that had to be rationed, and I'd been deemed not worth the investment. Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my apartment now. Abigail, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. You deliberately excluded me from a family event, lied about it for months, and now you're blaming me for being hurt. That's not a mishap, Mom. That's cruelty. And I'm done pretending it's anything else. She gathered her purse with sharp, angry movements. When you're ready to apologize to your sister and stop playing the victim, you know where to find us. After she left, I sat on my couch and shook for an hour. Not from fear or sadness, but from the sheer adrenaline of finally saying what I'd been thinking for decades. That night, I made another decision. I started documenting everything. Not out of revenge, not yet, but out of a need to validate my own reality. I saved every message, every lie, every manipulation. I took screenshots of the fake confirmation numbers. I wrote down every conversation I could remember, every time I'd been gaslit or dismissed or told I was too sensitive. The pattern was undeniable. This hadn't been the first time they'd excluded me or rewritten history to make me the villain. It had just been the most obvious. I spent the next month in therapy, finally saying out loud what I'd always known but never acknowledged. My family was toxic. Not in the melodramatic way you see in movies, but in the quiet, insidious way that makes you doubt your own perceptions and worth. My therapist, Dr. Ellen Chen, was the first person who didn't try to fix me or them. She just listened and then said, "You're allowed to protect yourself from people who hurt you, Abigail, even if they're family, especially if they're family." Permission. That's what I'd been missing. Permission to stop trying, to stop forgiving, to stop making myself smaller so they could feel bigger. 3 months after Italy, my father called. Not my mother, which was telling. My father only got involved when they needed something from me. "Abby, we need you to come to Sunday dinner. Your mother's birthday is next week, and Claire's making a special announcement." "I'm not available." A pause. My father wasn't used to me saying no. "This is important family business." "I have plans." "Cancel them. Family comes first." I almost laughed. "Does it, Dad? Because when you left me at the airport, family didn't seem to come first." "That was a mistake. We've apologized." "No, you haven't. Mom told me Claire's wedding was better without me." "That's not an apology. That's confirmation." "You're twisting her words. She's trying to make amends by demanding I show up to celebrate her, while she's never once acknowledged what she did." Another pause. Then in a harder voice, "If you don't come to this dinner, there will be consequences, Abigail." "Like what? You'll exclude me from family events? Already done. You'll tell everyone I'm difficult? Already doing that. What consequences are left, Dad? He hung up on me. I didn't go to the dinner, and I didn't hear from them for 2 more months. The silence was both relieving and heartbreaking. It confirmed everything I'd feared. I was only valuable to them when I was useful, when I played my assigned role. The moment I had boundaries, I was disposable. But something else was happening too. In the absence of their constant criticism and manipulation, I was becoming someone I actually liked. I took up painting. I traveled alone to New Mexico and hiked in the desert. I made new friends who didn't know my history, who liked me for who I was now, not who I'd been trying to be. I also got a promotion at work. Without the emotional drain of managing my family's dysfunction, I had energy for my actual life. I started leading a new literacy program that won district recognition. My students thrived. I thrived. Then, 8 months after Italy, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Marco, my brother-in-law. Abigail, I'm sorry to bother you. Claire gave me your number. I think we need to talk. My heart rate picked up. About what? About the wedding? About everything. I didn't know the full story until recently. Your family told me you had decided not to come because you were dealing with personal issues. But I found some emails between your mother and Claire, and that's not what happened, is it? I sat down, dizzy with vindication and renewed hurt. No, that's not what happened. Can we meet? I'm in the city for business tomorrow. I'd like to buy you coffee and apologize properly. We met at a small cafe in my neighborhood. Marco looked uncomfortable, which was fair. He was about to confirm that he'd married into a family of liars. I found the emails by accident. He started. Claire left her laptop open, and I was looking for a document when I saw a thread between her and your mother. They were planning the wedding, discussing budget, and he pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. The email was from my mother to Claire, dated 9 months ago. Decided not to book Abby's ticket. She won't fit with the aesthetic we're going for, and honestly, Marco's family is already intimidated by our size. Plus, we'll save nearly $3,000. We can just tell her there was a mix-up closer to the date. She'll get over it. She always does. I read it 3 times, feeling something crack open in my chest. The words were worse than I'd imagined. Aesthetic, as if I was a decoration that didn't match their vision. She'll get over it. She always does. A casual dismissal of my entire existence. I'm so sorry, Marco said quietly. If I'd known, I would never have allowed this. This is not how family treats each other. Did Claire know? He looked miserable. Yes, she agreed with your mother. She said it would be less complicated without you there. Less complicated? I was too complicated to love. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because it's not right, and because Claire is pregnant. They're planning a baby shower, and I heard your mother tell Claire not to invite you. I can't be part of this. These are my children's family, and I don't want them growing up thinking this is normal. I looked at this man I barely knew, this Italian architect who'd married my sister, and felt a surge of gratitude. He was risking his marriage to do the right thing. Thank you for telling me, I said. But I'm not sure what you want me to do with this information. I want you to have proof. I want you to know you're not crazy or oversensitive or whatever they've told you. And if you ever need someone to back up your side of the story, I will. We talked for another hour. Marco told me about his own family, warm and loud and inclusive. He told me how shocked he'd been by my family's coldness, their casual cruelty, their obsession with appearances. He'd thought it was cultural difference at first, American families being less openly affectionate. Then he realized it wasn't cultural. It was just them. After we parted, I sat with that email for days. I could do nothing with it. I could let it sit like all the other evidence I'd collected, proof that I wasn't imagining things. Or I could use it. But for what? Revenge felt beneath me. Public shaming felt dramatic. I didn't want to destroy my family. I just wanted them to leave me alone. Then, my mother made the decision for me. She sent me a letter. Not an email or a text, but an actual letter, delivered by mail to my apartment. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. The letter was typed, formal, cold. Abigail, your continued refusal to participate in family events and your hostile attitude toward your mother has forced us to make a difficult decision. We can no longer enable your destructive behavior. Effective immediately, you are no longer listed as a beneficiary in the family trust. Your father and I have worked too hard to build our estate to have it squandered by someone who doesn't value family. Additionally, we ask that you not contact your sister during this delicate time in her pregnancy. Your negative energy is not welcome. If you choose to apologize and make genuine amends, we can revisit this decision. Until then, consider yourself estranged by your own choice. Linda Hartwell. I read it twice, feeling nothing at first. Then the anger came, hot and clarifying. They were punishing me for setting boundaries, for refusing to accept their abuse. They'd excluded me, lied about it, blamed me for their cruelty, and now they were taking away my inheritance and access to my sister, as if these were privileges I'd lost through bad behavior. The letter was the ammunition I needed, not for revenge, but for freedom. I called a lawyer that afternoon, a family law attorney who specialized in estate disputes and familial abuse cases. I brought everything: the emails Marco had given me, the messages, the documented lies, the letter. She read through it all with an increasingly grim expression. "This is financial abuse," she said finally. "They're using the threat of disinheritance to control your behavior. The good news is that their letter is evidence of that. They've stated explicitly that they'll reinstate you as a beneficiary if you make amends, which proves the disinheritance is punitive, not based on any legitimate estate planning reason." I don't care about the money. I said and meant it. I just want documentation. I want it on record that I'm not the problem here. "We can do better than that," she said. "We can make sure they can't do this to you anymore." Over the next month, we built a case, not for court, but for mediation. My lawyer sent a formal letter to my parents' attorney, outlining the pattern of abuse, the documented evidence, and a simple request: a written apology and agreement to cease all contact unless I initiated it. In return, I'd sign away any claim to the family estate. My mother's response came through her lawyer. "Abigail is making outrageous accusations to extort money from her family." So we went to mediation. The session was held in a sterile conference room downtown. My parents arrived with their lawyer, looking furious and betrayed. Claire came too, pregnant and uncomfortable, shooting me hurt looks as if I'd orchestrated this to ruin her pregnancy announcement. The mediator was a gray-haired woman named Patricia, who'd seen every family dysfunction imaginable. She asked me to speak first. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply read a statement my therapist and I had written together, a clear and factual account of the Italy incident, the emails, the letter, and the pattern of emotional manipulation that had preceded it all. When I finished, I placed printed copies of every piece of evidence on the table: the fake confirmation numbers, the email from my mother about the aesthetic, the letter disinheriting me, messages from Claire calling me selfish for missing a wedding I'd been deliberately excluded from. My mother tried to interrupt several times, but Patricia silenced her. "Mrs. Hartwell, you'll have your turn." When my mother finally spoke, it was all justification and deflection. "We made a difficult decision for financial reasons. Abigail has always been sensitive. She's taking a simple booking error and turning it into a conspiracy." I watched my father's face while she spoke. He looked uncomfortable, which was new. He'd always backed my mother completely, but seeing everything laid out like this, documented and undeniable, seemed to be cracking his certainty. Patricia looked at the emails, particularly the one about the aesthetic and saving money. "Mrs. Hartwell, How do you explain this email to your daughter Claire explicitly stating you decided not to book Abigail's ticket? That was taken out of context. What context would make this acceptable? Silence. Claire spoke up, her voice small. We thought it would be easier for everyone. Abby's always so difficult about things. We just wanted one day where we didn't have to manage her feelings. Did you tell her that? Patricia asked. Did you give her the option to decide whether she wanted to attend under those circumstances? No, but so you made that decision for her, lied about it, and then blamed her for being upset about the lie. Claire looked at her hands. Face flushed. The mediation lasted 3 hours. By the end, my parents' lawyer was advising them to settle. The evidence was too damning, and if I wanted to, I could take this public in ways that would humiliate them far more than a quiet mediation. The settlement was simple. They would provide a written acknowledgement that they had deliberately excluded me from the wedding, and that their characterization of me as dramatic or unstable was false. They would agree to no contact unless I initiated it. I would sign away any claim to their estate and agree not to speak publicly about the situation. My mother was furious, but my father, surprisingly, signed without argument. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was finally seeing what I'd known all along. Or maybe he just wanted it over. Claire signed too, tears running down her face, but she didn't apologize. Not really. She just said, I hope you're happy now. As if my seeking basic dignity was an act of aggression against her. I walked out of that conference room feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd won. There was no winning when your family chose cruelty. But because I'd stood up for myself. I'd said no to their narrative. I'd refused to be gaslit anymore. The written acknowledgement came 2 weeks later, stiff and legal, but undeniable. I framed it and hung it in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that my reality was valid. My parents never contacted me again. Neither did Claire. Jake sent one message. That was harsh, Abby. They're still our parents. I didn't respond. Marco checked in occasionally, sending photos of his daughter when she was born. He named her Isabella. After someone brave, he told me. I like to think he meant me, but I never asked. Life moved on. I moved to a different city, took a job at a better school, met someone who loved me without conditions. I built a chosen family of friends who showed up for me, who bought plane tickets when I needed them, who never made me prove my worth. Sometimes I still think about that morning at the airport, standing at the counter with my small suitcase, realizing I'd been erased. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. Now it feels like the moment I finally saw clearly. They didn't forget to book my plane ticket. They chose not to. And in doing so, they freed me from a lifetime of trying to earn a love they were never capable of giving. I booked a hostel in Portland and left. And in leaving, I found myself. Some families are born, some are built. Mine was built, carefully and intentionally, from people who chose me as much as I chose them. We gather for holidays now, my chosen family. In apartments and borrowed beach houses. We celebrate birthdays and promotions and small victories. We show up for each other. And when we travel together, everyone gets a ticket. Because that's what love actually looks like. Not perfect, not without conflict, but present. Always, unfailingly present. If your family makes you feel like you have to earn the right to be included, like you're too much or not enough, like your feelings are an inconvenience, you're not the problem. They are. And you deserve better. I found better. I built better. And I've never looked back. In the end, the most powerful revenge is not destruction, it's liberation. It's choosing yourself when everyone else has chosen to abandon you. It's building a life so full of genuine love that their absence becomes not a wound, but a gift.